Mike Callahan here with a pre-submitted question on one of the Facebook groups talking about hiring a new administrator. So I'm not sure if this hire was a first hire for an administrative position or maybe their 15th hire, but there was some key questions that they asked. So I want to dive into them. Quick summary before I dive into the actual questions. If you're watching live, if you could just make a note in the comments here to let me know that the audio is okay. The video before this, the audio was a bit choppy. But as far as office admin success, main thing is a person wanted to know if they should lock down their computer. So what if the admin or someone stole the computer? Next was how do they block certain sites and what was the best recommendation on that to make sure when the employee was using and not using the computer, how do they get the actual tracking of their job hours? And thanks, Harold. Appreciate the audio is great. And a couple other questions that I'll dive into, but basically the first one I want to tackle is when we hire an office administrator, either post or like during COVID times as we're making this video here, we may have a remote worker, which adds a whole nother level of complexity. So I'm going to answer this question as if we have someone physically in the office and remotely. So the first thing is they wanted to know when the individual clocked in and clocked out. So most cloud-based CRMs are going to have a office time clock feature. I recommend using those. There's one built in to most of the cloud-based CRMs, and that was what I would recommend. If not, we want to make a Google Sheet and have them physically type in their start and stop times with break. Now, along the lines of Google, if you haven't heard of G Suite or Google Suite for Business, highly recommend it. And that's going to dovetail perfectly into the next question they submitted. So they said, how do we basically control the equipment or the computer if there's theft? Well, first thing, if you're doing your hiring right, you shouldn't be worrying about your admin stealing your computer. But as we're working remotely or we've got guys and girls in the field with Chromebooks doing estimates, theft is a big concern in my opinion. We want to protect that intellectual property. So what we're going to do is recommend that going out for the cost and pretty much the ease of use and everything else, Chromebooks are ideal. So along with the Chromebook G Suite, you can go in and actually have administrative rates of that machine. We're not doing it for Big Brother. Yes, you can log in, you can see what they're looking at, what time they're active. But the idea here is actually if someone breaks into a house or apartment or in a truck, estimate truck or estimate vehicle, we can go in and securely lock down that machine and actually wipe the data. So your intellectual property is safe. I think that if you're worried about your admin stealing the computer and your information, then we need to get to a level of delegation, or maybe we've hired the wrong individual. Next question along those lines was the gentleman lady also wanted to know what's the best practice for limiting the amount of sites that they can actually engage with. Well, I'm going to recommend you don't do that, but what you're going to do is talk to a industry professional like Jason Cupp at Kincaid to actually build out an employee handbook. Your employee handbook should spell out very clearly what is acceptable and not acceptable for work use on your computer and what kind of sites they should not be looking at as far as adult sites. So we want to spell that out, but similar to when you're in college or high school and you're going in and doing a research project, someone in tech decided there was certain websites or certain types of websites that fell underneath an umbrella that you couldn't get to. Well, we don't want to cause that issue that we may have all saw in school when we're going to do a research project and the sites are blocked. You can't get to them. In our business, we want to have all the sites wide open. We got to trust and enable that admin because really they're your eyes and ears in your central information hub. So maybe you're doing chemical mixing ratios. Maybe you're looking up something social media, state laws for pesticide applications, whatever that is. We don't want to restrict their ability to actually support you and your team by limiting the website. So I would say leave it wide open, have a very candid conversation through the onboarding process, as well as have it documented in your handbook so you're covered. And if that does come up, now there is some repercussion and you have legs to stand on. But if you don't explain and talk about what's acceptable and not acceptable and don't have it in a handbook, it's going to be tough to enforce that. That may not be grounds for dismissal if this individual is doing this. Going into the next question was, should they install cameras or a ring system in the office to make sure the individual is actually there working and doing what they should do? I know a lot of business owners that have camera systems in there. It's okay for security, but if your reasoning is to make sure they're there working when they should be working, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it at all. Big Brother, and honestly, if you're a male business owner and you have female staff, that's kind of the creepy factor as well, in my opinion. So basically, what I'm going to recommend is let's drive this new administrator in and actually talk about what they should be doing for their jobs. I recommend, if you've seen any of my videos, talking about the big three. Those are your strategic objectives for that position. So as this individual comes in and you train them, sit down with them and create a strategic objective, the big three that they're accountable for, that drives your strategic goals. So off the top of my head, the big three for an office admin would be returning all phone calls and emails in a certain time. So they're going to report out on that each day. So emails maybe are being responded 4 or 5 times a day. We're checking that inbox. And maybe finishing their tickets or to-dos, the tasks that are being assigned, and documenting them. And then maybe the third one is going out, putting that whole cadence together for you, just for accountability. But whatever those three are, they need to track. There is going to be some downtime in your business. It's just going to happen. There's going to be times when that admin has nothing to do. So why not create a Google Sheet or a Google Doc that shows all the things they could be doing when their strategic objectives aren't being hit? So they're not answering the phone, they're not returning emails, they're not checking overdue invoices, they're not scheduling, they're not billing. The main core stuff. What I recommend is having them going into a software CRM, similar to like Service Autopilot, where you can go into your client screen and click on all the houses around your current client and create a marketing database. This is what we did to actually go out and dominate a lot of the neighborhoods. And we'd actually have them go in and measure the online properties and create property-specific pricing for the services that we can measure online. And then when it became marketing time, we had a database that was qualified with pricing that we went out. So there are some things that this individual can be doing to drive bottom line profits down the line. But if you leave it up to their own devices and there's nothing else to do and you haven't told them what to do, that's where it's going to get interesting, because they are going to be hopping on the websites you don't want them to do. They're going to get disengaged and they're going to get lazy. So bring the right individual in, tie them into your goals for your business from day one, create ownership for those, and give them the roadmap for success outside of their core responsibilities if there's nothing else to do. So hopefully that helps. But I don't recommend being Big Brother, kind of getting creepy and watching your employees through a ring or a computer to make sure they're clocking in and clocking out. If you've hired the right individual, that should not be an issue. And if you have those issues coming up, if you can't coach them up, you need to coach them out. So slow to hire, quick to fire, even the hard labor times that we're in right now. Hopefully that helps. And the Google Suite or business for Google Business is the way to go, because that's going to give you the control, and now you've got a central place for all your documents. And as you add and subtract people from your team, those documents and the emails can all be forwarded and shared and unshared very quickly. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, don't restrict the person down and limit their ability to help you by restricting their computer down and basically watching via the camera. Because as the business owner, your goal is to be the visionary and the strategy person. If you're wasting your time trying to babysit a admin remotely, you're in trouble. The other thing too is when you bring this new admin in, you need to be able to train them. You need to spend 2 to 3 weeks with them. What we've built is an automated video training series of 36 videos and 6 modules with testing that went from lead acquisition through estimates, scheduling, billing, fulfillment, everything from front to back, and we supplement that with the virtual or in-person knee-to-knee. But don't expect you can just throw somebody in an office if they've had administrative experience not using the software that you use or the process of systems that you have in your business and think they're going to be successful. You will be setting them up for failure. And I've done this in the early years and learned my lesson. So if you're bringing a new admin, you or the manager need to go in and spend the time to make them successful and dial in what's accepted and not acceptable, and have them report out daily, each day, what they do for their strategic objectives, the big 3, and then every Monday they're going to give you a week in review. So you'll know what's getting done and not getting done based on those big 3. Don't make it more than 3, because it will not be trackable and it'll be too much work. We've tried that before. 3 is the magic number. So comments, questions, leave them below. We'll see you again tomorrow on Callahan's Corner, where you ask questions, we answer them live right here on Facebook.